Hello and welcome everyone to Kids for Ransom, the podcast where we expose the flaws, corruption, and systematic failures of the modern family court system.
We're just two everyday dads fighting for our kids and speaking out for parents across the country who are struggling to stay connected to their children.
In every episode, we'll dig into the real world scenarios, court documents, and personal stories that show us how the system is broken and how it's being used to hold our children hostage in legal battles that too often serve money and power, not families or justice.
We'll also break down the laws, policies, and court procedures that are being misused or misunderstood, and we'll share the hard-earned lessons we've learned along the way.
Just to be clear, nothing we share should be taken as legal advice. We're not lawyers. We're parents, and we're here to inform, educate, bring awareness to the reality that too many families are facing.
If you'd like to follow our journey, hit that thumbs up and subscribe and hit that ping notification bell. Families are being broken in silence. It's time to pull back the curtain on family court and stand with parents and children being held for ransom.
Welcome back to Kids for Ransom. We have some good discussions to talk about today. I got Sam here who would like to share some of those with you, and we have a structure of all the different stuff we'd like to talk about.
Yeah, today's we're definitely both pretty excited about the topic today. This particular topic has been a very important part of both of our cases. It's something that's been, in both of our opinions, I think, abused, and it's something that a lot of people call the silver bullet because it has that much power when it comes to family court. Just like a silver bullet, you'd only need one. This is all you need. If you get it, you're going to have custody. You're going to have all the control and the power. And that's restraining orders, domestic violence restraining orders, protective orders, they're called. And it's funny because if you talk to an attorney and explain what's going on in your case, I'm sure you've done the same, Paul. They'll fully acknowledge how much they're abused.
Yes.
And lately it seems, I've noticed throughout the progression of the case here, especially the last year as a pro per litigant, that if you're getting new judges, they just see restraining order and like they don't care what you have to say. It's like, oh, you're a domestic abuser, but yet when they're an attorney that fully acknowledge to their clients that they're often abused, but the judges don't seem to operate in that mindset anymore. So today we wanted to talk about, California, we're both in California, the legal definitions of what they consider abuse. Because as someone that's gone through my life and have no criminal record or anything, no one else has ever accused me of this. Mm-hmm. When you find out what they consider abuse, it's baffling. It is. Mm-hmm. So we have family code, 6203. Abuse is not limited to physical harm. So we're not talking just hitting people, assaulting people in some way. They define it as intentionally or recklessly causing or attempting to cause bodily harm. Okay, makes sense. Sexual assault, that would make sense. Mm-hmm. Placing a person in a reasonable apprehension of imminent serious bodily injury to themselves or another. Okay. Engaging in any behavior that has been or could be enjoined pursuant to Section 6320. Okay. Let's check out 6320. Do you have 6320 yet?
Yeah. So it complements the 6203, which lists specific prohibited behaviors like stalking, threats, property destructions, those kind of things. And, this was a good statement regarding the abuse of like the 6302 is this misuse undermines the integrity of protective orders and harms the families of the law, which is meant to safeguard. But it burdens the courts damages the false accused party's reputation and their parental rights, and it diverts critical resources away from true victims of domestic violence. And when 6203 is invoked with little or no evidence, it risks weaponizing the court system against good parents, turning kids into ransom. For the harsh reality where children's become leverage in a high conflict dispute. And that 6320 language is used together to empower the judge to issue this restraining orders. What do you have on the definition of 6320?
Well, they have it. They say it could be harassing, attacking, striking, threatening, assaulting, hitting, destroying personal property, contacting directly or indirectly, coming within a certain distance, or disturbing the peace of the other party. And I think that's a big one right there. I hear disturbing the peace of the other party, and that's a very vague statement.
It's very broad.
I hear disturbing the peace, and it makes me think of, like a house party, someone getting the cops called on them, So, wait, this is something you can get a restraining order for now? Someone saying that you disturbed their peace?
Yeah, I mean, I think disturbing my peace is like, oh, a car nearly hit me. A helicopter was flying really low and you actually thought it was going to crash into you. Um, you know, they use it so loosely, like I was chewing some bubble gum and I blew a bubble and it popped, and therefore someone's peace was uneased, and therefore they must get a restraining order. Like to that level of ridiculousness, right?
Yeah, yeah. For
Yeah,
me, the disturbing the peace, for my case, recently, the other party went after the first restraining order was up for me expressing frustration in another room.
yeah,
Um, they seeked a restraining order extension, and it was granted strictly under the legal argument of Family Code 6345, and that basically says you can get a restraining order extension without committing any further abuse, as what they defined, which could be
uh,
disturbing the peace of the other party,
yeah.
but simply for the fear. And I know they did mention something about disturbing her peace recently, and it's just like you read through the messages and the exhibits I put in, and that's not what it shows. But the judges they use their discretion, and they said, well, this is what we see.
All right.
And the ruling is just, man, they start over time, they start to like not make sense. You don't know what they're looking at. You can show any other rational person some of this evidence, and they're like, this isn't abuse.
This is kind of where I can say that this is almost like evidence showing that the judicial officers are not taking evidence into account, and they're using a narrative. Like you'd have to believe they're using a narrative provided by somebody, and we don't have the evidence to show who that is of building that narrative, but we do have at least somewhat of an insight on what could be, which would be that the governor of the state is the one that elects these judges to be on the bench. And well, put two and two together. I mean, that's really all I could say, but I'm
Yeah.
speculating here, right?
Well, you're not speculating. Every judge I've looked up, it says appointed by Gavin Newsom. And I know that once they're appointed, they can run until I think it's sometime in the second January of that term, and then they have to get voted in. But it's just a little weird that every single one that I look up says appointed by Gavin Newsom.
This is very
So it's I don't know what's going on, but it's suspicious.
very
It is.
suspicious. And I've seen this as far back as 2021. And this is where like, oh wow, restraining orders are kind of happening a lot more. And going through my experience in 2020, I mean, I had to defend myself on 3 restraining order hearings in 2020, and yet never got a restraining order, right? But then all of a sudden, moving into 2021, then it's almost like my judge at that time, the new one, almost like was so eager to see that there was some type of something that he could actually point the finger and say, you're a domestic violence freaking, you know, whatever.
Domestic
Yeah,
abuser.
yeah, it's exactly. And it was almost as if like he was like hinting to my ex, like, just waiting for her to get that opportunity to file for a restraining order, which then
Yeah.
finally did happen in 2022, right? And
Yeah.
and it was like, man, I didn't have a fighting chance at all. It was like as if they just already had it determined that that's the way that it was going to be. Well, especially my judge. Um, just that was the way that it was going to be. And no matter, like you said, there was very minimal type of messages that your ex, was claiming that you did, but it was like, oh, but it uneased her peace. Like my ex did the same kind of thing, where it's like, oh, the text messages that were not anyway threatening, but I mean, by all means, it was where it was conflicting argument kind of thing like that, but not vulgar, not violent, nothing of that sort. And yeah, it was as so easy to just get a restraining order issued. Of course, mine had a lot of more complexity to it because of all the other allegations that were previously made before even that hearing started. But yours, you were, I think you were within one specific thing happened with your restraining order, right?
Um,
Oh no, I lost you.
yeah, I don't know what happened there. What do you mean one specific thing?
One
No, it was
specific.
a handful of little frivolous things,
Oh,
Uh,
okay,
an
okay,
event where I walked to the garage after an argument with her when I was just frustrated. I was trying to resolve conflict, and you got someone that's trying to incite conflict.
right.
So it's frustrating over time. You got a kid, you're trying to make things work. And I went out of the garage and frustrated, I threw a soda can against the side of the garage. There's another time I got frustrated and threw. I'm like, and that's what they
Oh,
considered abuse.
and they use that as well, huh?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, so it's just these minute type of allegations are enough
Well, yeah, it's like they twist the narrative. You
to
know,
twist the narrative.
it's these
Yes, they
people
do.
come in and they're there to paint a picture that is not based on reality. And it seems like there's this very vague language that the judges are using to apply restraining orders on people that I don't think need to be restrained. I know I don't need to be restrained.
Right.
Um, so we
Yeah.
were talking about disturbing the peace. I want to go over a couple examples here. They consider disturbing the peace isolating someone from friends and family,
Hmm.
controlling finances,
Hmm.
monitoring communications or movements,
Hmm.
and intimidation or surveillance.
Hmm.
Um, and controlling finances, that's something that came up in the first restraining order trial, where they tried to get a restraining order, and her attorney argued, I was the only one that worked. She didn't work. Throughout the relationship, we agreed on her looking for work, and it just never seemed to happen. She didn't put in the effort, and so I paid all the bills. And she was certainly someone that likes to spend. Um, and she had a credit card of mine, so that she had access to, like, if she needed to go to the store, put gas in the car, like if I'm at work, obviously she needs to have the ability to do that. So she had a credit card with a pretty sizable limit for your basic necessities and needs. If she needed to go get clothes, she could do that. And they tried to say, she would say in the relationship, I'm not allowed to look at the bill and see what she bought, because like it got to a point where like the spending was getting out of control. It would get racked up. I'd have to pay it off. And she'd say I wasn't allowed to look at and see what she bought. And it's just like, that's insane. I'm the one that has to pay this. Um, so, controlling the finances, they certainly used that argument in that first trial.
Okay, I guess so similar. My ex tried stating like I controlled all the finances because she didn't work, and that I was hiding like how much money was in the bank account, and I never let her see the bank account. Stuff like that. And but especially it's like if I have one account that says all the money that I make, and it's primarily, for making sure that, there's a foundation that's strong in the house. Well, I'm not going to go and sit there and show her every little thing about my finances that I put together in a bank account anyway. I mean, first of all, if you have a irresponsible person, and I think that's kind of like what we deal with really about these restraining orders being issued. These were irresponsible people. I believe, I don't have everybody's finances. I don't have everybody's, degree that wouldn't file these things, but I can tell you, my personal opinion, I think the majority of them are very irresponsible people. And, we fell into the trap of the irresponsible, bear trap. So, like you, yeah, a person who whined about not being able to have control of finances when they didn't make any money. Yeah,
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 yeah. It's just, yeah, you try to, you're working and paying all the bills. Who's the one that's, I mean, I think the person working and paying all the bills, especially in my case, it got to the point where I'd have to do the majority of the housework when I came home, even though
yeah,
the other
yeah,
did
yes,
work. And, I tried to just put my nose down and grind through it and get it done to
yeah.
try to keep a two-parent household for my daughter. But it, it gets to a point where you feel like you're being abused, you know, like
And
all you are is a paycheck.
and it's like the court doesn't even see that. The
But
court
they
doesn't.
somehow see, yeah, exactly. They somehow twist it and
Uh,
say, I'm financially abusing her by paying all the bills, paying for everything that her son needed because she didn't work and her son
yeah,
needed things. Back
yeah,
to school every year,
yeah,
Christmas every year, birthdays, like all the normal stuff.
yeah,
But I'm the one who was financially abusing.
yeah, yeah. Because you didn't show her every little like dollar or every statement that was ever produced of
You know
that
what?
bank account.
A lot of I've noticed a lot of the accusations
Yeah.
seem to be projections. It's like they're snitching on themselves.
Yeah, well, that's
Um, and when you realize that and you start to look at the behaviors and their accusations, it seems to be so true. Because that's insane to say I'm financially abusing someone when I'm paying all their bills, taking care of the kids, whether it was a son from another marriage that she had or our daughter.
yeah.
Um, it's just insane. It's not reality. They're painted a false picture.
This is said in the psychological community, where as though somebody who would actually go and be as so insecure of themselves to where they would then go and paint this picture about their partner, when in fact everything that they're actually projecting was in fact what they were doing themselves. So it's kind of like, well, this is one of those things where women, sorry, any partner, so man or woman, if they are projecting a jealousy upon you, are really really like pushing on you about accusations of cheating, generally the person who's doing that is the one who's cheating.
Yeah, it holds true in a lot of aspects of life. I've seen it a lot in work,
Yeah, okay.
and it's the ones that are talking the most. Sometimes you got to stop and look at them.
Yeah,
Sometimes I feel like they're talking to take the attention off of them and try to put it somewhere else. 100%.
yeah, okay, yeah,
Um, so yeah, but like both of our cases, as soon as these protective orders went into place, getting time with your children,
mhm,
there's this what is it, the 3044 presumption that once a restraining order is put in place, even if it's for controlling finances or isolating someone from friends or family,
uh-huh,
which are very vague statements, even if they say that's what happened, they can use this family code 3044, which says it's not in the best interest of the child to um, have joint or even sole custody, either legal or physical, of the child. So that's where, the silver bullet comes from, because for the dads that just want to be with their kids,
Yeah.
um, it gives them all the control and all the power,
Right.
and and
One of the effect, one of
I
the
think
effects
that's
of the
what they
RO.
want, you
Yeah.
know.
Which is very much one of the effects of the RO. And that's something that I think I kind of want to go back, and I want to even speak about the effects of what these restraining orders actually can do. And we both definitely have experienced a lot of these in similarity, but like the more the personal social type of impacts, is just like, you're going to be barred from being able to contact your ex directly, or indirectly. Like, that's kind of crucial when it comes to co-parenting, but yet you're not going to get that freedom to even do that. These stay away orders that actually then get in place, like, the 100 yards. And then there's going to be all these arguments about that too, because it'll be all these little, you've seen all these little check boxes, right? And that's like, stay away from the person's home, work, school, car, and when you get a child put in there, I mean, then it's all this back and forth, with the other person who's now saying, "Oh, but you're not supposed to be contacting like the child's school, something like that." And you're going to get into that because of stay away orders. The impact on well, shared residence. I mean, anyone who has one of those situations of living with them, the DVRO will just get you kicked out of your home.
Even
Um,
if it's your home and your home only legally.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. I think you had a little experience with that too, didn't you, Sam?
A little bit.
Yeah. Okay. The big one here, as well as our Second Amendment rights, which is the firearms restriction.
Yeah.
California law requires that you surrender or sell your firearms. It's like what, 24 to 48 hours, after being served it.
Yeah, they took mine right away because that's what the sheriff's office said.
Uh,
Because I was a little concerned that the backup key to the safe where they were kept away from the kids,
uh,
it was went missing. So I was a little concerned that my ex had that and expressed that to him, because I don't want her to get access to firearms that are not hers.
yeah, yeah.
And they said,
Yeah.
"Oh, well, we have to take them then." And I looked through the paperwork later and saw that I had 24 hours to go take them somewhere and have them
Sure.
sold, or take them to any gun shop, really, any FFL dealer.
Right.
And instead, it went to their lockup, and you
Okay.
know, a lot of people lose them at that point.
I got a question on that then.
Yeah.
So, um, when they take them to their lockup, there is actually a type of, I don't know if they're called a deputy, but they're basically like an evidence keeper. Um, when contacting these people is when you'd actually kind of give them the name of your case and such. And then they would actually be able to tell you about whereabouts the firearm is. I don't know if did you get a chance to talk to them about your firearm? Because I could still even be sitting there. I mean, my firearm
No,
was
they
sitting there
don't.
for
I don't.
years. I'm talking,
No, it's not years. It's not years. I know.
oh,
I know. I have other people I know who went through this, 10, 15 years ago, and they had like family heirloom type of firearms that he never saw again. They just disappeared. And I
so
don't think there's very much time, maybe 3 to 6 months.
let me interject there. So my firearm was taken in 2018, right after I got arrested. It was that night actually they took my firearm, and I was told though that I was going to have that chance to go and get the firearm and go and sell it and such. Now the weird thing was, it was like all this time passed. I tried to get in contact. With somebody. I didn't call that department though. And I tried to get in contact with somebody. I'm like, where is my firearm? And I need to be able to do something with it. I find out years later, that they had my firearm. You know what they did? They sent me a letter saying, we need you to do something about this firearm or we are going to destroy it.
Yeah.
I was told all the way back then that my gun was destroyed when it wasn't. So fast forward all the way to where this restraining order thing was, issued against me, I would say it was in 2000, late 2023, possibly 24 is when I actually did get to go and get my gun, retrieved to sell to a dealer. So they may in fact have it because it's just that one department you got to make sure you contact. Maybe I could.
Yeah, this comes down to, and this is probably just like the family courts where each county does their own thing.
Yeah.
I guarantee you there's no consistency there.
That's true.
And I know for me, when I had to try to reach out and find out where they were at and see if they could be retrieved and sold, at least recoup some of the finances there, especially as you're getting dragged into family court, paying thousands of dollars for attorneys, you're looking for any way to pay for this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so, I'm sure it's not consistent from county to county. I know that when I had one of the stores that was going to pick it up and deal with selling it, that they reached out and they were getting inconsistent information when they'd reach out and talk to that place where they had it.
Yeah, and I was looking it up. It's actually called the property division within the police department. Firearms desk, field evidence technician. This property division is where one would actually contact to get their firearm back.
Yeah.
Email. Yeah. So that could be useful. And who knows? Maybe yours is still there. Never know. You could be still there.
Well, no, they got sold. Sold. He seemed pretty familiar with the process when I talked to the guy.
Okay.
I had to find kind of a little mom and pop shop. You try some of these bigger chain stores and they don't know anything about the legality of some of the different issues like that,
Okay.
And they certainly seem familiar with restraining orders being used to take away people's guns. It was, it seemed like they were used to people coming in that situation,
Yeah. So normal, but abnormal.
Something I think that needs to be pointed out, though, is like we have a right to due process.
Yeah.
And it just seems crazy to me when it comes to removing the firearms. A lot of these protective orders, they're not just brought up at a hearing and the court hears all the evidence and then makes a decision.
Right.
They go through ex parte, which is where they file, and within a day or two, they're going to get an emergency ruling.
Right.
And so a lot of these restraining orders or protective orders go through that avenue.
Right.
And a lot of the time with these ex partes, they don't have the other party in to provide any testimony, to have any ability to prove innocence or provide any evidence. So they literally, like in my situation, an ex parte was ignored because the other party left with a child. That was ignored. And then I think it was 3 days later on the Monday after the weekend, the sheriff's office show up and give me a restraining order that was issued through ex parte. And this is, I have zero criminal record.
Right.
And it just seems insane that they can show up without you taking any testimony or having any say. There's no due process at all.
Right.
And they issue these temporary restraining orders.
It's guilty before proven innocent.
Yes. You are guilty.
We are not
you are guilty unless you can prove innocent.
America.
Yes.
As much as people actually think we are the United States of America, we are not the United States of America. Not the United States of America that we knew years back. So many years back.
That's definitely true. I think it's a little worse, just particularly in these family courts, because it's not proof beyond a reasonable doubt. It's reasonable apprehension, and that's a very subjective statement.
Well, I can say the same thing about criminal courts too, though.
I'm not. And that's what's funny is we all know cases where someone went through a criminal court with a higher evidentiary standard and they get wrongly convicted all the time. Sometimes they spend decades in prison.
Right, exactly.
But these judges seem to act like, well, look, there's a restraining order. Calm down because you're an abuser. Not in any way thinking maybe this, maybe the ruling was not a proper ruling.
Yeah. You know how they use
they don't think that way.
You know how they use our masculinity against us?
Well,
this is for men, but us men, we're men. Okay, we're like, think of the gorilla. I'm sorry, but I'm not somebody who like, oh, by the way, I just want to say I don't think this is right. I don't think so. There's no
Yeah.
man out there that's going to do that. It has a pair of cojones, and no man's going to do that. So they have to acknowledge that we're men and we're going to act as men. We might raise our voice. We may be firm. Do we bring our fist up in the air like, come on, come on. You just told me that I yelled at you. We don't act like that. Criminals.
Well, some do, some do,
Oh yeah,
and
but
that's the problem. Is they're trying to make it sound like every man does,
yes,
and I think
yes,
there's a clear issue in society where men have been demonized.
yes.
Um,
Very, very
we
true.
certainly are not going to go into where all that came from, but
Well, we do have to
yeah.
touch we Sam, we do have to bring up this one thing that President Biden went and signed into law, which really made us look like that. And
Let's
this
hear it. Let's hear
was
it.
the Caden's Law. Everybody look that up. Caden's Law, which actually was signed by Biden because of some woman and their and her ex got into some kind of fight with each other. Da da da. This guy was like, I'm a good parent. I'm a good parent. Of course, nothing was really on record as to exactly what their altercations were. But when he got to get back finally with his kids, apparently he killed the kids and he killed himself. And so now every man is now a murderer. And so
Yeah,
this is the problem.
I know that there was a case recently locally to me where a similar thing happened, and it's tragic when that
It
happens
is
because
tragic.
someone has to be completely out of their mind to hurt their children,
Right.
regardless of what's going on in a custody case.
Caused by the court
To hurt
system.
your kids, like you have to be off in the head, and it's a
Yeah.
tragedy. But exactly to act like, well, it happened once, so
Yeah.
now we have to completely remove fathers out of the picture, and that's going to fix everything.
Yeah.
And sometimes it almost seems like that's the agenda, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Or
it's
removing our gun
it's not
rights.
rational thinking. It's definitely not rational thinking.
Not
If that's
rational thinking at
the
all.
thought process that someone's going down, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it
Well, so then think about also the implications of that restraining order is that that is very easy for them to then make this a criminal consequence for you. If you were to violate any restraining order, even once, they can a judge's discretion, I guess, can then result in these criminal charges by putting you into a criminal court for that that violation. Um,
for me, I in fact,
uh,
I think that one of the one of the trials, I think, when the accusations were coming out, just making it sound like I was violating the restraining order left and right. The other
yeah,
party basically filled out some police report on the website online and then
yeah.
printed this police report out and submitted it like, oh, look, I had to call the police on him. And with
Uh,
claims, and so there's been multiple claims through law enforcement that I've violated the order. I've never been contacted by law enforcement. They don't seem too interested.
right,
Um,
right, right, right.
maybe maybe they know the game that's being played, you
Yeah,
know.
right,
Um,
right.
but yeah, it just
Which is actually funny too. So I want to touch base on those violations. So a parent does a violation of, like, say, the child, so the parenting time violation. So what I found is that they have you go to a DA website, you know, and by going to the DA's website is your only method of actual, like, formally complaining or putting in some type of notice that something happened. You actually fill out some stupid form, and it doesn't even go to the DA's office. It's literally something for you to print out. It gives a case number for it, and then you turn that into the judge when you go to your hearing again. To
yeah,
which, in my experience, that judge doesn't even care about it. Didn't even blink an eye when I actually submitted like 4 or 5 of them.
yeah,
No, no, they don't do two hoot nannies. It's something that's not even a real thing. It's just to silence all of us, which is the problem, is that silencing us is what I think that's all about.
Yeah, no, it sometimes they're pretty obvious with that intent. I've been told by a judge blatantly to stop talking until I'm told to talk because I'm invoking a 14th Amendment right and stating that a basically the surprise evidence that was being allowed at a
Mhm.
trial was a violation of due process rights. And later I find out it's a violation of California court rules as well. But my local court has this weird rule where when it comes to trials, you just show up with the day of with your evidence and you don't give it to the other party ahead of time. I mean, that's surprise evidence, and no one can create any kind of meaningful defense in
Yeah,
that kind of situation, being at that kind of disadvantage.
correct. That'd be a
So
terrible.
it's
Sounds like how
yeah,
it was when I was in my well, two of the restraining order hearings that I had to go to, these surprise witnesses. It's kind of that same thing, that surprise evidence, that surprise witness that
yeah,
just showed up out of nowhere, and somehow the judge just totally allows it, right? Because the narrative was to give the restraining order in the first place. But yeah, interesting you touched base on
yeah.
that.
Both of my last two trials, surprise witnesses too, and
Hmm.
that actually violated even local trial rules that says you have to serve that witness list. I think it's 14 days ahead of time, and it was
Correct.
never served at all. Just showed up the day of the trial, and judge says, "Nope, we're moving forward. Put your witnesses up."
Mm. I want to think, what's that?
It's a witch hunt, in my experience, and I'm sure not everyone's had this exact same experience. Not every judge is definitely the same. The restraining order extension judge, I don't think there's anything I could have said or done to change her ruling when I look back at that whole day.
Uh, okay. Uh, I'm looking this up. I want to see what that evidence code is.
And back to that whole police report thing, we've talked about how attorneys, certainly don't seem like they're trying to help you. I paid an attorney $6,000 and 3 weeks later get a $7,100 bill. And in that meantime, a trial was set because just with accusations that I was violating the order, and they submitted these police reports. And I don't know if the police reports were part of the judge's decision to set a trial date for this
uh,
extension, the DVRO extension. But before, and just in my own preparation, once I got rid of the attorneys in prepping to go to the trial for that, I find out that these police reports aren't allowed to be in these courts in this manner because they're unverified documents. It violates California evidence code.
oh, because
And my
there's some,
attorney didn't even know enough to bring that up before a trial date was set. I mean, that seems like a pretty good argument
yeah,
before a trial date set if you want
yeah,
to avoid that. Maybe they don't want to avoid that because they make, $5,000 to $10,000 pretty easy for a trial.
yeah, absolutely. That seems to be the
So
quote.
it just baffled me that an attorney that seemed experienced, this is their job. They went to law school, they passed the bar, didn't know that it violated California evidence code to submit a police report where there's just an accusation they never showed up.
Yeah. So, so it actually that was something that has been used in some cases, some hearings of my own, by the way, which is interesting. I didn't know that they couldn't, but you're right. That's not it's unverified. They create a report to where there was not even a questioning of the two parties. It was just the one party.
Yeah, yeah. Just someone said something.
Yeah.
And, like literally, I could just take my judge's name and get online and make a police report. And I could
Yeah.
have an accusation that a judge threatened me or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
It's no different.
go take a PDF of a police report and then go and use PDF editor and then
Yeah, not something I'm gonna do,
screw
but
you guys,
it's
man.
just the that's what it is though. I could literally do that and have the same thing. So it's just proof that it's meaningless.
Yes. In which, so the California Rules of Court 5.111 declarations, okay, when a party requests an order, they must file supporting declaration under penalty of perjury, explaining the facts that they rely on. Okay, then moving into the opposing party must submit response declarations within the deadlines of 5 days before the hearing for ex parte or 9 days before a regular RFO. And that's under CRC 5.92 and CCP 1005B. Now, that's the actual needing to uh, exchange information. So we were talking about, you need to be able to be given something before you go into court, knowing that whatever type of exhibits and such like that. This kind of, I guess, plays into that. That's the very beginning, right? You got to be able to give each other declarations, and then from there would be the evidence, right? So that's the exhibits,
Yeah.
an enlargement, kind of thing like that. Um, let's see. I'm actually getting a little. I'm actually getting a little hiccup here. We'll come back to that. I want to go into the impacts of like your reputation, because one of the problems is, and I've experienced this myself. We've talked about, you go get a domestic violence charge against you, whether that is a misdemeanor, whether that is a felony, all of that, all same thing applies as the effects of your life. Well, the same thing happens in family law as well. So if you get a restraining order, it is said your public record is affected. So a background check would show that you do have like a restraining order.
Yeah.
To the degree of what type of employers might, do that deep of a dig, that depends on your
Well,
position.
well,
But
when your restraining order says at the bottom that it's part of the CLETS system, then
uh,
that means that it will show up in background checks.
okay, so there we
That
go.
means that if there's a violation, it could potentially be a criminal charge.
Yeah, so that can protect that could damage your professional reputation, you know, when you especially if you're going to get different jobs and in careers, and trust me, I know I've worked with a lot of corporations, we're talking directors, managers, even vice presidents, they go from one company to another. It's quite common. Imagine if you had a restraining order on your record that disallowed your next job. I mean, it could be it could be like 100 jobs you try to go for.
Yeah, yeah. It,
I
uh, it,
know,
I'm lucky I haven't had to change jobs since this restraining order happened.
yeah, me too.
But
Yeah,
yeah, that's a real concern. If
yeah,
you're trying to get a good quality job,
yeah,
and here's the problem: most people don't realize how easy it is for someone to get these protective orders, or how often
yeah,
they're abused, or just used not as a sword to protect themselves, but or not as a shield to protect themselves, but they're being used as a sword, as an offensive tool to control someone. And so most people they just see restraining order and yeah, they're going to think, oh, this guy's unhinged. Maybe he's some kind of psychopath. Like I don't want to hire him.
yeah, right, exactly. They just consider it as conflict. It's like,
Yeah,
that's a risk, that's a liability. We can't have a liability in our company right off the get-go. So the guy who just applied before you, well, they didn't seem to have that. So kind of, I think we're just going to go with that other guy, kind of thing like that.
yeah. I got to say, if I had to get the job I have now with
Ah,
that on my record, if they saw that, I probably would not have even gotten a second interview. They wouldn't have even told me why.
yeah, there you go.
You know, because I remember, I've worked for over a decade here at my current employer, and
Yeah,
I know even back then there was a lot of talk about how do you resolve conflict. Like they don't want people that are because we work in a dangerous environment, it's industrial environment, so you can't have people fighting or being unhinged out there. So it's understandable.
yeah,
But the problem is people just don't understand. They see a restraining order and they think, oh yeah, they make an assumption.
there you go.
And it's I don't don't even know if I blame them, to be honest. I think I blame the system that allows these restraining orders to be abused
Well,
and to be
it's not like
used
it's
to
taught in
control custody.
school.
What's that?
It's not like it's taught in school, you know?
No, no. Yeah, it's funny because like I didn't know a lot about the law, basic stuff they teach in high school, but
Yeah.
don't remember a lot of that anyway, and there's only so much they can cover. And I had no criminal experience. I've never been to court for anything,
Yeah.
And to once I started learning more about the law and representing myself as a pro per litigant,
Yeah.
it's the more you learn, the more baffling it is what these family courts get away with. Not just family courts, other ones too, but the family courts are just
Yeah.
they're bad.
They're
They're
unhinged.
bad. They literally ignore due process. You have people's fundamental constitutional rights being taken away with
Absolutely.
just one party saying something.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so easy. And we going back to where we were talking about the temporary restraining order, they can get it granted for anything. I mean,
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
anything. I can
Like,
literally
hey,
go in there
hey.
and just said, I was scared. I was scared. What happened?
Yeah.
I don't know. I was scared. And
Yeah.
that's it. That's all you need to just throw someone's life upside down. And we all have to agree this has to do with money. These sick,
Yeah.
sadistic courts all care about the benefit of their funds over your family. You just remember
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Clearly Title 40 is abused when a court profits from intervening and removing custody from a parent. They're
Yes.
not a neutral third party anymore. They're
Right.
someone who stands to financially profit from it. In fact, I had to do a child support trial recently,
Ah,
and I don't have an attorney. The other party has an attorney.
ah,
Um, so you'd think, oh, I'm just going to be dealing with one attorney there, but no, the state has their own attorney present for this because
ah.
they're there to protect the state's financial interest in
Right.
the outcome.
Exactly. Exactly. And they're always on the side of whoever's
Hmm.
not paying the
Of
child support.
course, of
Right?
course.
Whoever the
Somehow
child
they
support
just
is going to,
magically
and they say that they're neutral. And they
they
say that they're neutral. And they're so not because you try to go and get help from them, whoever case manager is such, you don't get help from them at all. You get
no.
the other party gets the help because they're not
It
there to
took
help you.
me from when I filed for a child support modification due to a change in circumstances, multiple
Yeah.
changes.
Yeah.
Um, it took me about 1 year
Uh,
to actually have a trial to where I was expecting resolution.
Yeah.
They, because originally the order was made in family court, not through the DCSS courts, the
Yeah.
Department of Child Support Services.
Yeah.
And that's where they got to funnel all the child support payments through for the state to make their grants
Yes.
for the amount that they collect.
Yes.
And so it's funny because even on the DCSS website, where the original order was made in child support court, not the DCSS court,
Yeah.
but yet you get on the DCSS website and it says, do not make any payments directly to the other party. All payments have to go through DCSS. Now, I don't think there's actually any law on that, but they say it. And
Oh.
this is just a state-ran website, so you assume, oh, that must be the case.
I
So
think it's
I've
a good
always been
idea.
making payments. I've always been making payments through them just because I believe that. And
I
so
think
eventually, when I went to go get a modification, they argued and hooted and hawed about, oh, well, does DCSS need to be involved? Does it need to be in their court? And I was instructed, they set a follow-up hearing for way far out, but I was instructed, work with your caseworker and get a hearing in the correct department with DCSS.
uh-huh.
So that's what I did. And I got the runaround for, man, 4 or 5 months, I think,
Uh-huh.
at least 4. And before I finally just went to the DCSS filing and filed my own RFO to get a hearing.
Uh-huh.
And then they use that as an excuse of the retroactivity for making this adjustment all the way back to when I filed, because that's the law.
Yeah.
They claim that, oh, because I had to file a new RFO to get a hearing in the correct court, that I lost that retroactivity. So all the rulings just seem to always benefit in keeping the payments as high as possible, even
Yes.
if it violates their own rules.
Uh, hey, so that's actually interesting because I could think like going and paying like go pay the other party not through the DCSS system. Go actually pay them in Venmo or Cash App or send them a check or anything that you could at least show, hey, this payment was to them. And one thing that every parent should be paying attention to when it comes to child support court is discovery and knowing what discovery is and knowing how to use it, because this could be one of those things that is going to be very helpful down the road when you need to prove things that were paid. But imagine that you had just paid them through that, and then you could go and get go show the court after whatever months or whatnot. Oh yeah, I've been making all of these payments, by the way. They need to adjust that and subtract everything that was actually any kind of interest, any kind of, any kind of fees. Could you imagine that though? Like where you could then bypass the DCSS by your own by strategically paying the other parent and then going back to court again with, I already made the payments, Your Honor. Here's all my payments. And you didn't pay through DCSS. Well, is that a crime, Your Honor?
Yeah.
Something to look into.
Yeah.
I think that's good. But going back to one of the things you said too was, the all that time it took you to get things kind of resolved.
Well, there's still not resolution because the order was so messed up they didn't follow any of the laws. I objected to being heard by commissioner. The commissioner still signed it after like a week or two waiting for the order.
Oh, God. Okay.
So it's legally a void order at this point. But so yeah, still gonna have to go back again and hope they can correct the issues. Otherwise, it's gonna have to go for an appeal, and that's gonna take at least a year.
Yeah, I mean, those things that happen in DCSS, yes, it takes forever. And even I was surprised you said trial, because this is one of the things when you're starting to get into the whole family law thing. I didn't even know that you had to request for a trial, or you needed to have a trial.
I didn't request a trial. I wanted the decision to be made based on the evidence and the filings that were priorly filed with the court and noticed to the other party and served them. Mom's attorney came in and said, I'd like a trial. I'd like a trial.
Oh, okay.
So she gets whatever she wants.
Well, see, that's the benefit when you get to have a trial. Whereas, I'm gonna tell you what.
I'm pretty gun shy with the trials in my area. The trials is where all the really improper rulings happen.
Well, you were also dealing with an attorney who was going to, battling against you as well, to where they want to benefit. They always want to give favoritism towards attorneys. I hate to say it, but yep.
They do 100%. I mean, my opposing counsel goes in there and I don't have an attorney.
Yeah.
Even if it's my motion and I'm the moving party at times, they'll go to her to update the court on why we're there and what's going on.
Yeah, I think that happened to you once, huh? No, I want to say, because okay, so originally my first DCSS hearing was in September of 2020. I did not get a resolution to the whole argument of these arrears that were being claimed that I owed. Okay, it was thousands of dollars, and what they claimed to was arrears, right? That did not even get resolved until I think February of 2023. It was one hearing after another hearing after another hearing. We didn't have a trial. And that's where they just kicked the can down the road and thought we could just keep charging more interest, which, by the way, they did charge me interest on the money that they took off of my bill. And they kept it there, which would make me have to go back to court to then show them. You know what I mean? It's
all about the money.
And they even did it for $1, for God's sakes. $1. I was like, I'm not paying you $1. I let that shit sit there for 8 months, man. $1. I owe them $1.
I think they've changed the law for the state, but they used to take your license if you were behind on child support.
Yeah, there's things like that. Yeah,
Like, we want you to keep paying, but we're going to take your transportation so you can't get to work.
yeah,
That
you're
doesn't sound like that's going to help the situation if you want your
revoke
money.
your passport, revoke your license. Yeah, possible jail time, all that stuff. Anyway, but yeah, that's a DCSS podcast we'll have to do, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Another one of those
um,
topics. There's a lot to talk about.
but okay, so I want to definitely touch base on this one. Affects me a lot. Um, when you want to go out of the country, you every single time when you come back into the US, you have to stop into what's called secondary. And the secondary inspection will then have to do their normal routine, which is nothing's normal there, by the way. There's always something different with those guys down there. I swear to God. But you every single time when you go to the border, you're going to have to always go through this secondary. And sometimes it takes a long time. You're already waiting a long time just to get across the border. On top of then you got to wait extra long for these particular secondary areas. And
Yeah,
and and that inhibits one's life if they actually frequently travel out of the
yeah.
country. You know, I mean, thank God we don't have that going state to state. Can imagine that mess.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's,
Um,
I mean, that's my little personal bitch fit. But then we can say like there's like the attorney fees, right? You could possibly have to pay attorney's fees to the protected party because they got the
sure.
restraining order. So therefore, which surprisingly, and I do mean very surprisingly, that did not happen in my case. I did not have to pay for my ex's attorney.
Yeah.
I I mean, if this judge thought I was that bad of a person, why did you not make me pay the attorney fees for this freaking crazy nutcase? That's see, doesn't that? I mean, logic,
Well,
logic. We all
to be fair,
know the court is not logic.
to be fair, the attorney fees don't bring any financial benefit to the court,
Ah, very good. Yes,
right? If we just,
a
just
rebuttal.
point out the facts.
Yes, right. Good rebuttal. Yes, Sam. Uh, but we already talked about some employment impacts, which they kind of can. Oh, definitely security clearances. You're not going to get a security clearance
Oh yeah.
with one of those, and oh, that that's kind of what It's like those big things like that are kind of what can drive a parent crazy to really go do some wild, violent stuff, man.
Yeah.
Because it's it's turning people's lives upside down. Um, and I think I'm hearing that public housing is affected. Like there's public housing programs that can terminate you or deny you based on having a restraining order. I don't know.
What, like Section 8 housing and stuff like that?
Section 8, it could be the low income housing, which I don't know if they all are Section 8. Maybe they are. I don't have experience with that one, but that's just what kind of came up in some research.
Interesting. That would, and here's the problem. If these restraining orders were only being issued in legitimate situations where someone needed to be restrained
Uh,
to protect someone else, then, some of these consequences wouldn't seem so unreasonable. But when they're handing out these restraining orders like candy, like there's some kind of ulterior motive, it just, and then you look at all the consequences that comes from it, and it's insane.
yeah. Oh, it is. It's insane to the point where I'm just so surprised that society has not actually, just came together in some large like they did in so many cases over the last couple of years with all these protests. Why is there
Mhm.
not something like this happening for all of our children? I just posted something on 4th of July that was kind of regarding to this. It was like, I was, take quality time with your child. And because you never know if you're not going to get to have it, but it's asked yourself the question, who's are your children really free? The whole thing about Fourth of July and Independence Day is to actually have the independence, to have the freedom, and we don't feel very free when
No,
we're parents
no,
in these situations.
like I've told you, I've been told that I can't even record in a public parking lot because of the restraining order removed my First Amendment protected activities that
Yeah.
all fell in line with what penal code states, is allowed and not allowed when it comes to recording, especially in a public setting.
Yes.
But a judge argued that basically a case law that upheld that it's not a violation of Second Amendment rights to lose those based off a restraining order,
Hmm.
where a lot of the time no due process happens. Um, they unfortunately upheld that, and a judge cited that case law in her order to make the argument that it's not a violation of my First Amendment rights to say that I can't record an exchange in a public setting with a body camera like law enforcement has.
Because that is First Amendment rights when we think
Well,
about
not according to that judge. She used that
it.
case law about a Second Amendment case that challenged the legality or the constitutionality of a
Yeah.
DVRO restricting Second Amendment rights. She applied it then through her own interpretation to First Amendment rights as well, which is insane when you're dealing with so many false
Right.
allegations in these courts. They're making orders without any real evidence, just claims,
Yeah.
and you're just trying to protect yourself, protect your relationship with your child. And then they say you can't even wear a body camera like law enforcement wears in a public parking lot at a police station.
Yeah. Because or anywhere.
It's like, how do
Or
you protect
anywhere.
yourself?
But yeah, yeah.
How do you protect yourself when false allegations have become a sword or an arrow
Exactly.
that can
Yeah.
attack you?
Without
How do you
a
protect
shield.
yourself
Like,
then? You
yeah,
don't
like
you lose all constitutional rights according to them.
yeah, you have nothing to protect you with. You have no shield, you have no body vest, you got nothing to deflect, these silver bullets that are coming at
So
you.
something I got to throw in there. Something I got to throw in there. At the beginning, we were talking about how these restraining orders, the DVROs, they obviously take away your Second Amendment right. You
Yeah.
were talking about how then you can't own a firearm. Well, it's not just you can't own a firearm. You can't own a firearm parts. You can't own ammo,
Yeah.
nothing, right? No magazines, nothing.
Yeah.
But
Well,
you know what else is on that list?
body armor.
Yes. So not only do they disarm you, but
Yes.
you can't wear something that's used as a shield.
Yeah.
So, like, let's say there's civil unrest in the streets.
Yeah.
Not only do you have to be disarmed, they want you to be a soft target with no protection.
Yeah. Yeah. They definitely are violating our human rights,
It's,
aren't they? Yeah. They wrote it.
man, I heard that and I just
They literally wrote it in with a pen on because they didn't have even the typed up version. They wrote it in with a pen. It
on
was like,
yours.
yeah, I didn't. I just thought it was like, oh, you're gonna go as so far as putting body armor in there now, huh? Oh, okay. So that's a thing that they're actually changing the forms, I guess, with that then, huh?
Yeah, they must have not had an updated form or updated language in there.
Yeah, because they're lazy.
Yeah, well, they
Ah,
just and you deal with any government entity in any way. It
yeah,
just in my experience after going through this, I'm contacting police departments, sheriff departments, doing public records requests, trying to get evidence, enough evidence to just put right in front of the court's face for
yeah,
them to start making decisions that are actually in the best interest of the child and not just I don't know what to call them right now. Not the decisions they're making, because the ones they're making, in my opinion, are clearly not in the best interest of the child. If they look
yeah,
at all the facts, to any time you have to remove a child from a parent, like, are there times that needs to happen? Absolutely. But man, I'm seeing it used as a weapon, and it's not about the kid's safety because it affects a kid to take away their biological parent that's a loving, fit parent.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
there's Supreme Court cases that have set the precedence that we are assumed to be a fit parent unless proven otherwise, like
Uh-huh.
with an actual ruling with clear and convincing evidentiary standards being used.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And the abuse of using witnesses that also like they could lie for the court, lie in the court to just benefit that one side, where that one side has given their entire story, and that witness knows nothing about your story whatsoever, and
Yeah.
then goes and lies for those, that whatever petitioner or other parent. And then next thing you know, that is being actually accounted against you by the judge. And I kind of want to even put the blame on even the police enforcement. Uh, Deputies of the sheriff's office did in fact go and use this type of behavior or this type of testimony to try to give this narrative that my ex and her lawyer were pushing. And you have to be very careful of these police officers because they very much can, do that, and they're obviously going to give a lot of weight to the judge. So,
Yeah.
I think if you get into one of those circumstances, I think it's very best to one go file that official complaint with their sergeant, get an investigation going, and then you're going to get body cam footage. And I think we didn't really pay attention to this early in the game, but body cam footage of police officers or even in the court, those cameras that are there, you can subpoena for them. We probably want to touch base on that on another episode because I think that's an important one that could really, make or break even a hearing just by one of those types of evidence. So
Yeah, especially when there's no record of the hearing. They're kind of these close
especially
courts
there's
where you
no.
can't record. They're not recording. Sometimes it can be challenging, like we talked about in previous episodes, getting a court reporter to document what's happening in that hearing.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Well, then, like you said earlier, they just surprise witness you, and then you're trying to object to it, which there is a legal objection to that. Do you have that on you by chance?
I don't have it on me. I don't remember. It's been a little while since I've had to have that fresh. But it's yeah, there is a clear legal objection to that, multiple actually, I think.
I think with
And
family, yeah, I think it's
for me, it would violate the local rules that states that a witness list has to be served. I think it's 14 days ahead of time. It violates court rules or the state court, rules of the court.
yeah.
Um,
5.1.113. I know
that
that's
sounds familiar.
I know that's definitely one. What in the world? Family Code 217 gives party the right to present live testimony, but requires notice and fair opportunity to respond. So I think that Family Code 217 is also where an objection would be like, hey, I did not get notice of and a fair opportunity to respond to this witness. I think that's something that should be brought up.
Yeah,
Yeah. But anyway, that was a kind of important one that we need to tackle. Those surprise, evidence or declarations or witnesses that do step into your hearing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I just pull it up, and there's massive, multiple evidence codes you could argue that it violates.
Uh,
Local, for Sacramento, there's a local rule 14.10, California rules of court 5.394, just down the list, And even if you bring all that up with them, they still,
5.394.
yeah,
That's the one I objected with.
yeah.
And yet still was actually just ran over like a steamrolling train.
You're a pro per litigant, and
Yeah,
the sad part is, here's the deal:
yeah,
most pro per litigants aren't going to probably put in the time to learn all this.
right.
So they're used to being able to steamroll everyone. It's kind of like some of these law enforcement officers, right?
Yeah,
I think most law enforcement officers are generally pretty morally
yeah.
sound people,
Moral
but
sound.
there's
Yeah,
always bad apples, right?
right,
And
right,
there's certain law enforcement officers that when you exercise a right, because sometimes they pull you over and they just demand an ID when there's no legal basis for them to require that.
right,
And most people just do it because they don't know any better. They don't know their rights, and they're
right.
like, I'm not doing anything wrong. What do I
Or
got to lose?
or search the
And so they're
car.
used to people complying,
Yeah.
and allowing them to potentially violate their rights simply because they just don't know them. So I think that kind of happens in these family courts where people will try to object, maybe find one or two of these objections or rules of court that it would, violate,
Mhm.
and they're used to being able to steamroll a private litigant, and they're just going to go away. They might file an appeal. Who knows if they're going to get any fair rulings there? So
Yeah.
they're used to just being able to steamroll people.
Right.
So
Yeah.
they just do it, and you have to fight through filing appeals and who knows what else to try to get them to operate in a legally sound way.
Which is kind of one of those things I've kind of questioned this. An appeal costs a lot of money. Even if you do it by yourself, even that's still pretty
Yeah.
costly. If
Oh
you're
yeah.
not on a fee
Yeah.
waiver, and fee
Thousands.
waivers can definitely help you. What was that?
Sure. Yeah. Thousands.
Thousands, right? Yeah.
Deal. And
Just
even
get,
if you're representing yourself, talk
yeah.
about an attorney, try like 30 or 40.
$30,000, man. Jesus. I mean, wipe you out. Like you could have went to 5 trials in custody on your custody battle in the superior court. But you go to an appeal, I mean,
Yeah.
it's nonsense, man. It
Yeah.
is a double-edged sword, and we're getting cut. It doesn't matter what side we're on.
And not just that, our kids are losing out.
Oh,
Our
they're
kids
still
are
losing
suffering
out. Yeah. Yeah.
because someone's manipulating, between the judges, abusing their discretion and just making orders that don't seem to follow their own rules,
Yeah.
and then claim that someone else making accusations is enough that you shouldn't get to be with your kids or they shouldn't get to be with you. It's
Give us a story before we go. I want to hear a story from you with your daughter that something that really hit home and was very memorable and it really it sowed that impression of her love for her daddy. You know, when as I
you
got
know
really
I had not my daughter when I split up with her mom, um and before mom took off with her and wasn't really letting me come see her or get parenting time voluntarily,
yeah
um, and then later filed that restraining order. I went from not just seeing my daughter every single day, but sleeping in the same bed as her for almost 2 years. So not once did my daughter ever not have me laying next to her at night or in the
yeah
morning. And so I went over a month without seeing her, without ever being stepping foot into the court that issued this temporary restraining order.
hmm
And that was, man, that was hard. It's hard as a parent to just have your kid gone and you can't talk to them, you can't find out if they're okay, you're not even
hmm
allowed to know where they're at. And so when I finally got parenting time, probably I think it was a little over 4 weeks since I had seen her, I just got 2 hours on like a Wednesday night until Sunday when I was going to have my normally scheduled parenting time for once a week. So I hadn't seen my daughter in over a month, and man, I remember just thinking, like, what does my daughter think through all this? Where does she think Daddy went?
right
And that tears you apart inside thinking about that,
yeah
thinking that maybe they think you're not there because you don't want to be with them.
right
And so when I showed up at the police station, my daughter saw me and ran to me, and I picked her up and hugged, and she didn't let go for over 5 minutes. You know,
yeah
and despite all this, I'm grateful we still have a great relationship. She knows how much I love her.
yeah I think you've proven it so many times before this whole maelstrom happened that yeah you 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 got that love that just can't be broken. I think
Yeah, yeah. But there's people trying.
there's people trying. It's very true,
Yeah.
man. Yeah, I could say I got a story. I had a story that was similar to that. It was just I just thought of this last weekend because there was like when before all this happened, my daughter was only 4 years old during that time. So that was definitely one of the times where, like, she would come and sleep in bed. To get usually like almost like every time she came over and when it was time for bed, it was like I'd sing her a song. And this was something that was just so common. Like I'd sing her a song, she'd tell me what song to sing, or maybe sometimes she'd even sing with me, and um there was this movie that I had her watch when I was a kid, which is called The American Tale. I don't know, it's about these little mice, whatever, Fievel. There's a really good song in that movie, um, and it was after I was, you know, after I was taken away. Well, this before I was even taken away. This is something that we even sang as well. Didn't really have that kind of meaning, but after I was taken away from my daughter, this is when that song had a whole hell of a lot of meaning. And
Yeah.
it was like one of those songs that I would play all the time. After she was taken away from me, I just played that all the time. And when it came to actually getting to come and see her again, it was like, oh, I always wondered, was she thinking about me? Because that's kind of a line in the song.
Yeah.
Somewhere out there. That's the name of the song, right? And so I always wondered, is like, was she ever thinking about me during this time? And I talked to her about it in the car the other day, and I said, when I was taken away from you, this is the song. I was already playing it on the radio. This is the song that I used to play almost every night because I was always hoping, that you were thinking of me when I was thinking of you. And then she would say, "Yes, I was thinking of you."
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, that's just one of those moments you're like, yes, the other parent has not slain, our hearts away from our children.
Yeah. Yeah. It's too often that seems to be the motive. And it hurts the kids. It doesn't just hurt the other parent, it hurts the kids.
Well, hurts
So
more for
that's why we,
kids. Yeah.
when we look at these restraining orders and what they're being issued for,
Yeah.
it's just it's insane the effect it's having on not just us but the children.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's clearly being abused and it's not right.
It's destroying lives in any way you look at it. It could be my life, my daughter's life. It could even my ex's life. It's destroying her life too, and she doesn't even realize it.
Yeah. You know, I've kind of you start to think about solutions for this, and
Mhm.
I'm certainly no legal scholar, but it seems like it would make more sense for restraining orders to have to go through a criminal court.
Right.
Hell, there's a ruling in a criminal court. It has no impact unless you have clear evidence that a parent is dangerous. It should have no impact on custody.
Exactly. So that should be the new bill. That should be the new bill that's written and presented to our esteemed governors next year. I don't know.
I'm
There
sure
is
our
that
governor will get
opportunity.
right on that.
Huh?
I'm sure our governor will get right on that.
Oh yeah. Well, we have two. Um, we have two that can be contacted. It doesn't look good for California,
No,
but
I don't. We've talked about it. I don't know that legislative change is
yeah,
going to fix this because there's already rules that they're not following
right, and
time
yeah,
and time again. So maybe if they just started following all the rules of court, starting respecting due process rights,
yeah.
that could make a big impact right there.
Well, it's I think more of actually it's if we can get somebody to hold them all accountable. There's nobody to hold them
Yeah.
accountable. There really isn't, as we've seen
No,
time and time again. Nothing happens to these people. Nothing.
no. And
Even if
that's not just a problem of these family courts. I was listening
yeah,
to a First Amendment auditor video,
yeah,
and where there were two clear cases where an officer was just clearly a dangerous person to be holding a badge and a gun every day
Yeah.
after watching these cases,
Uh,
and he was still working for the department. And
yeah.
so this video was calling for action, calling for people to message
Yeah.
the government and the governor and try to have this person removed from his service, because it was insane after watching the videos and how this person conducted himself. He had a clear ego that was off the charts. He had clear anger problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, there has to be accountability for government in general.
Government in general.
I don't think there's enough checks and balances at this point, at least on the state and the local levels.
Well, that's kind of why we just hope he just attack from all sides, and that's why I'm a promoter, or I'm a supporter and advocate for the whole legislative change, but just as well as the others that that are out there trying to whether that's creating new systematic ways of presenting yourself in court, to legislative change, to hell, I mean, even as far as trying to get the president's attention on the matter. I don't know. I don't care. I don't care how crazy
Yeah,
it sounds. It's do
yeah,
it. Do
there's a
it.
lot of people trying a lot of strategies.
Yeah. And they
But
should
we'll finally, and at the same time, we're fighting our own custody battle at the same time.
at
So
the same time. Yeah.
it starts to consume you at some point. I think I'm sure we're going to come back to this topic, restraining orders. It's a pretty in-depth topic. It's pretty relevant to both of our cases.
Yes.
But I think it's a good episode on just kind of touching the surface on how they're abused, what the definitions of what they consider abuse, and so forth. And yeah.
Well, good. Well, I hope we'll bring in some good material on our next episode, and kind of wrap this one up just with be careful with those restraining orders